Hey friends, welcome back to TinkerCAD. I want to get you guys set up for success and go over our project. Let me just move my face around so we can see everything here. So I'm going to go over a few things. We're going to do a little refresher on like how to move around in TinkerCAD. My favorite tool. What's that? I should be hearing echoes of response at this point. Okay, cool, great. This is my favorite design tool, the mouse. And yeah, we're gonna go over a few things that are gonna help with you to recreate your phone stand in TinkerCAD. So that is our assignment. All right, quick refresher. Clicking on the work plane with the right clicker allows you to orbit around and see things from different angles. You can also do that up here using this cube and messing around with that. Click and drag with your left clicker to bring an object into your work plane. Your corners that turn red are editable in a few different ways. You can click and drag that corner and just kind of get things proportionally where you want them. You can also be a little bit more precise. And your units are down here under Edit Grid. You can change that to inches if you want. And Snap Grid is the increment that things change. So if I use my keypad, the arrows on my keypad to move left or right, X and Y, right? Like this is the X and the Y coordinate. That's my unit of increment, like that's the increment unit that things are moving, and that's affected by the snap grid. So you can make that bigger or smaller by changing that, okay? That's going to be useful. The other thing to know is if you want to move up and down in space, the Z direction, it's this cone. Again, you can also click here and make that very precise. That's the distance off of the work plane, right? So that's our reference point. And alternatively, you can use your keypad with some hotkeys. So Shift and the up and down arrow if you have a Chromebook. It's Command and the up and down arrow on a Mac. Okay, so that's moving stuff around, right? The other way that you can move things is to rotate them. This is something that is going to be useful since a lot of you had designs that involved angles, okay? So if I want to rotate this in the XY plane, I can click on this little thing that looks like arrows in a half circle, right? That's our rotation icon. So clicking on that, notice my mouse is inside of the circle. And my increment is 22.5 degrees inside of there. If I go outside of the circle, I can move in individual degree increments. That is going to be very useful. So sometimes you want things to snap to 22.5 degree increments, and sometimes you want to have nuance and adjustment, fine adjustment. Here, it allows you to rotate in a different plane, so this might be useful. Order of operations. I will talk about this a lot. You will hear this from me. If this red block is supposed to be cardboard and it's too thick, like this doesn't look like cardboard, but now I have it at the angle that I want it, that looks like the thing that I made. If I go to change this now, do you see how that distorts the cardboard, or the model, the block, the rectangle? It skews these angles here. Control Z, undo, undo. This is where I want to adjust the thickness of that cardboard. So if this is cardboard, let's make it look a little bit more cardboardy. And then I want to get it at that angle, say 45 degrees. And let's move it up in space to 0. Oops. I'd like that to be sitting right on the work plane. You can see now when I zoom in on it and I look at it, these are 90-degree angles. This cardboard is exactly the way that it should look, right? It is not skewed. So please, 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 order of operations, pay attention to when you do stuff. And also, hot tip, you are going to do things in the wrong order, and that is okay. That's part of the troubleshooting cycle. In fact, that's great. As long as you catch when you're doing it, that is a great thing, because that means you're learning like, oh yeah, I should do X, Y, and Z before I adjust my angle. We really want to try to make our final models look as true to reality as we can in this case, in this particular case. That's kind of our objective. That's how we're learning things, okay? So in other cases, we'll be much more experimental and exploratory, but this is what we want to do here. Let's say that I wanted to have a hole for the cord to go through for charging purposes, and I kind of want it to be a circle, so I'm just going to move this up a little, doing that with Control and the up arrow. I want it to be centered, so I'm going to select both objects and go to Align. So again, thinking about that, that's where I want that to be. And I need to turn that into got a lot of little notes coming up here. Okay, turn it into a hole, select both things, group them together. Hooray, I've got a hole. What I don't have is the bottom part of this little piece of cardboard. So probably what I should have done, now that I'm thinking about my order of operations, is I should have made like a whole bunch of pieces of cardboard, that I modeled, and then started moving things around so that they would have had the same width, and I wouldn't have had to have done this. I wouldn't have to repeat this. I could have just copy and pasted stuff. So there's some clever ways to do things. So let's make that cardboard. In this case, this would not stand up unless, oops. Also, if I hold Shift while I drag, it holds it in one of the X or Y axes. So that's super useful. Let me do a copy pasta here, and I'm going to rotate this puppy. Let's hold Shift so it stays in alignment there. I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. We're going to squish it. And we're going to move this, again, hold Shift back here. You can see where it engages with the top piece, right? Yeah. Hey, sometimes you fly through objects. This looks pretty good. So some of you had designs that were not too dissimilar from this. I'm going to select all of these things, group them together, and voila, we've got a thing that kind of sort of looks like some of the designs that you guys came up with. Now, some of you had popsicle sticks and toothpicks and straws and some other things. A straw would be a great thing to mimic with a cylinder. So if I have a hole that I put in here, make the top of that go higher, select both, align them. I'm gonna go super fast because I know you guys can keep up. I don't know if this computer can keep up though. Let's try that again. There we go. And we're gonna render those together. Awesome, now I can make that super tall, and I can change the diameter. Whoops, I did that in the wrong order. Sequencing. Also, get your measuring tape out to see how large a straw is. But anyway, you've got the idea, right? This now kind of looks like a straw, and we can rotate it and mess around with things there. Same thing, one thing that I do want to point out, under basic shapes, we've got making at home. This one's super useful because popsicle sticks and toothpicks are in here. So those are already designed for you, which is fabulous. Pennies, if you use that, straws, metal cans, cups. Again, get creative with your phone stand and model it in here. If TinkerCAD makes you want to change your design, that's awesome. go ahead and do that and then model it in here. And we'll talk in the next video about how to share that with each other. All right, happy making.